Take a look at your own hand. Every single cell inside you is built from incredibly common materials, things like carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. These are the exact same lifeless elements drifting through the vacuum of space. Go back 4.5 billion years, and Earth was an incredibly violent world. Just raw heat, cooling magma, and zero biological life. We know that eventually oceans formed, and carbon-based molecules swirled together. But tossing water and carbon into a volcanic blender does not spontaneously assemble a living, breathing organism. To figure out exactly how we get from a dead rock to a living planet, we have to look at how early Earth managed to cross three nearly impossible chemical bottlenecks. Biology emerged through a billion-year systemic process, slowly turning a chaotic chemical laboratory into a self-reproducing machine. The first bottleneck is simply getting the parts. Before anything can live, raw planetary elements have to forge themselves into complex organic molecules, specifically the amino acids that act as the building blocks for proteins. In the 1950s, scientists Stanley Miller and Miller-Urey set up a closed system of glass tubes to simulate that early, chaotic atmosphere. They pumped in gases and applied continuous electrical sparks, mimicking the lightning storms of a young planet. After the experiment ran, they checked the water at the bottom and found a brown soup. Those electrical sparks had successfully forged amino acids out of thin air. That cleared the first bottleneck. It proved that the foundational raw materials for biology are a completely natural byproduct of planetary chemistry. But having a pool of amino acids is like having thousands of Lego pieces scattered across a floor without an instruction manual. The pieces cannot build or copy themselves. For a living cell to exist, it requires a systemic mechanism capable of storing genetic data, and then it needs a way to successfully copy that exact information. This leads us to the RNA world hypothesis. Today, complex cells rely on DNA, but scientists suspect early life relied on a simpler molecule called RNA, functioning as a chemical multi-tool. A single molecular strand of RNA acts as a hard drive, holding lines of genetic code, while folding in on itself to trigger chemical reactions. Because it has this dual ability, primitive RNA could physically manufacture copies of itself. The most efficient copies survived and became more common. RNA built the evolutionary bridge over the second bottleneck. It allowed non-living chemistry to organize into a self-replicating system. Still, there is a third major problem. If you leave delicate self-replicating RNA strands exposed in the open ocean, the chaotic currents will immediately wash them away and dissolve them. They desperately needed a strong, protective boundary. Researchers think the perfect incubators may have been hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the sea. These deep-sea structures pump out heat and energy. Their rocky surfaces act like microscopic test tubes, trapping chemical ingredients together in highly concentrated pockets. In these turbulent, watery conditions, specific fat-like molecules naturally snap together to form tiny spherical bubbles known as lipid membranes. If self-replicating molecules get caught inside one of those bubbles, they suddenly have an internal, highly controlled environment shielded from the outside ocean. By trapping the genetic instruction manual inside a protective chemical wall, Earth crossed the final threshold. It produced the first true living cell. Once that barrier of cellular reproduction was crossed, chemistry stepped aside and biological evolution took over as the dominant driving force on the planet. Over billions of years, early microscopic organisms developed photosynthesis. They began exhaling oxygen, slowly transforming the atmosphere and physically rusting the iron straight out of the Earth's ancient oceans in what we now call the Great Oxidation Event. We still have mysteries to solve. We are currently finding evidence that some of these vital organic ingredients might have actually crashed to Earth on meteorites from outer space. But we know that as oxygen accumulated, those early isolated cells had the fuel they needed to form complex multicellular organisms, eventually leading to plants, dinosaurs, and mammals. The ongoing search for how life started is a quest to trace the unbroken biological chain that connects the atoms in your body right back to a 4 billion-year-old chemical experiment.